Welcome to our special Easter spooky story time. This is our second of our Sunday spooky story times. Today I'll be telling you quite a few good tales. We do have with us my twin brother who's filming for me.
Hello.
So you, like most paranormal explorers, probably wonder, is it spirits that are going bump in the night behind me? Or is there a more rational explanation out there? There's a few mixed camps, but one of the stories, anecdotes rather, that I'll be telling you this evening is one that comes from here, New England, and is told on Easter. You see, a family had just moved in. My apologies, still learning this. A family had just moved into their new home when, on the wall, they had put a sign. The sign read, "From ghoulies and ghosts, long-leggedy beasts, and things that go bump in the night. May God protect us." Though for this particular house, set in Litchfield, perhaps they should have been wary of things that go bump in the day, because it seemed all hours that strange knockings would fill the house. Oop. We're reconnecting. Sorry guys, such is the nature of wireless and Wi-Fi. The missus, who had heard the first of the knocking, had just assumed that it was children, her children, playing. It had come from the front door. She went and investigated, and found nothing. 10 minutes passed, and soon she heard more knocking. Oddly though, this time, it was coming from inside. She investigated as much as she could bring herself to, but found that there was a presence with her, one that she could not stand to be in the house alone with. She waited outside until her husband returned, who had assured her it was nothing. Could you throw more logs on the fire? It's getting low.
Of course.
And then her husband, very clear, creaking, groaning on the floorboards above him. 5 footsteps that led to the staircase. It was too much for him. Like his wife before him, he could not stay in the house. He left and sat outside until she returned. Still, they were convinced these were not spirits, merely things that could be explained. One day they had a friend over. They had had cats, and their friend had had cats too. When both the men sitting in the parlor started to hear what sounded like cat claws on a screen door. The man of the house looked over at his friend and said, "Do you hear that?" The man said, "Yes, and I could tell you quite clearly what it was. It's a cat clawing on screen doors." The man looked back and replied, "Yes, that is what I hear too. But all of our cats are indoors, and we don't own any screen doors." The man, the guest, excused himself from their property. To this day, they don't know whether or not it was paranormal activity or simply things going bump in the day and night. I bring it upon you to ask yourself, if you heard footsteps in your attic, if you so very clearly heard cats that weren't there, if you heard cars pulling into your garage at all hours of the night and see shadows on your wall, I would go looking for the pragmatic solution too. But when you rule out everything, it seems that what remains is the truth. It seems like they are perhaps unwilling to believe that they are among the paranormal. There are those who do not get so lucky with their paranormal experiences. Well, that couple has a mild experience with spirits. There are other spirits that are vengeful, wrathful. And this brings us to our tale of pirates. This tale comes from Block Island and comes from a poem called The Buccaneer. There was a man named Lee, a native of Block Island himself. Lee was a trader, a merchant, stumbled upon a senora. She had just been widowed. Her husband was part of the Spanish military, and he had died in combat. She was widowed and could find no suitor, and therefore exiled. Her bad luck was that she ran into Lee. Lee and the pirates played very well the role of gracious host. He had promised her passage to America, where she would be safe from her Spanish exile. She brought with her gold, jewels, servants, and riches. Things that pirates want. Her perhaps most strange attachment was a pale white horse, very large and very doted after. It clearly seemed to be her favorite thing. Lee played his role very well, right up until they were out in the middle of the ocean. Lee, sensing his opportunity, sent his pirates in to murder the woman's servants. They're stabbed to death in the middle of the night, brutally, their bodies thrown overboard. That is when the men, and Lee most of all, make their way into the Senora's chamber. I'd like to read a passage from the Buccaneer itself for this part. Do you mind?
I don't mind at all.
A crash. They force the door. And then one long, shrill and piercing scream comes trilling above the growl of men. 'Tis hers. O God, redeem from worse than death thy suffering, helpless child. That dreaded shriek again, sharp, and wild. It ceased. With speed o' the lightning flash, a loose-robed form with streaming hair shoots by. A leap. A quick, short splash. 'Tis gone. And nothing there. The waves have swept away the bubbling tide, bright-crested waves. How calmly on they ride. The men had taken too much from her. She could no longer live with herself, with what they had done to her, and so she had thrown herself overboard. It was then that Lee decided to do something to cap off the truly vile evilness he had been doing. That white horse was still on board. And another reading. Such sound to mortal ear ne'er came, as rang for o'er waters wide. It shook with fear the stoutest frame. The horse is on the tide. As waves leave or lift him up, his cry comes lower now, and now is near and high. They threw the horse overboard, and very quickly, like the Signora, the horse vanished, fighting against the waves. The men sailed back to Block Island. Eventually, they gained the ground, but not before, let's say, curses seemed to befall them. At first, Lee got it in with one of his men. He stabbed him through the heart over a dispute of gold and gems. They threw his body overboard as well. When they had gotten to Block Island, the best course of action